listening to the Monica Sanford Show, a podcast where I talk to anyone I want about everything and anything we want to talk about. You're here for another great episode of sharing people's stories and hearing why they do what they do. A variety of topics and guests. Everyone has a story, and I love helping them share it. I am Monica Sanford, your host today, along with my co-host and husband, veteran, retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel David Sanford. So follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, follow, share all the pages, follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. So today's guest is super, super special. I'm so happy to have him on in studio here. We have known him for 20, 25 years. I don't even know, 20 plus years. He is going to tell us all about Battlefield to Boardroom. But he is retired. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
He is retired Marine Major Lee Stuckey. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get through. We love him. So, excuse me. Retired Marine Major Lee Stuckey, combat wounded, multiple combat tours, 3 or 4 times at least. Three times. Purple Heart recipient, professional mixed martial artist that me and him are going to dive into because that is takes me and him way back. Founder of a nonprofit organization, AHERO, which I have been to some of those events. Your veterans love it. Everybody loves it. Keynote speaker now, leadership speaker, motivational speaker, faith healer, speaker. I mean, you name it. It's sought after for leadership advising. And he's going to tell us all about his new business, his nonprofit. How long has AHERO been?
16 years.
I was going to say, because I had Colonel Glassman on before talking about it on the show maybe 2 years ago or something. But I went to one of the first events, I guess, 10 plus years ago. I mean, it's been a while. So 16 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And overall, just an amazing guy. So, dude, I don't know. And he brought a friend with him, Keith. I don't know much about him, but he is a Marine. Served with him at OIF-1.
Yeah, we're in the Nation together, and he was my brother's roommate, so that alone gave him PTSD.
Exactly. Yes, I've met Lee's family, and they're all adorable. But So Keith is going to be on the mic, too. Dave is here, so I don't even know where to start with you. There's so much to talk about, but we're going to dive into all kinds of stuff, background that we have with you. But we're going to take the first minute or so. You're going to kind of rewind us and tell us, why you went in the Marine Corps, because this is going to be, of course, very Marine Corps heavy, very veteran heavy. That's, the show. So I want you to take us back to how you became a veteran. I mean, why you went in the Marine Corps, how that story happened, what was going on.
Yeah, I'm going to start, though, with I'm only here because of God's grace and mercy. And my faith is first and foremost. Every morning I wake up, that's what I start with, is my foundation in faith. And I know that he used my mother to save me, and we'll get into that later. But every single thing I've ever gotten through in my life, I know it's been because of him. Yeah. And he has a giant purpose for me. And I just want to be used every day for that purpose. So it's just a blessing.
And that first purpose started with him saying, you're going to join the Marine Corps.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had the opportunity to either go to juvie, prison, or Marion Military Institute. And so
what's the difference?
Yeah, so there's a big difference. And so my grandfather was fortunately a judge and loved me and made some phone calls and said, hey, if you go to Marion Military where your brother's already attending, we're going to, work you through the court piece and get you through there. And as long as you behave while you're at Marion, then we'll get through this and you can graduate high school. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. I don't know why you would pick the other two options. So I ended up going to Marion Military Institute, and it's the best thing that ever happened in my life. I mean, I was never malicious but mischievous and just, class clown. I like to fight, which fast forward, I ended up being a professional mixed martial arts fighter. It's better to get paid for it than assault charges. But I did grow up liking to fight and liking the competition, and got in trouble for that as well. So went to Marion, and I saw my first Marine, Staff Sergeant Sutton, who ended up picking up Gunnery Sergeant. He was a recon Marine at a 3rd Reconnaissance in Mobile. And I just remember the guy, he was just so squared away. And we were all terrified of him. And said, if I can live my life 10% like this guy, I'll be okay. I'll be successful. This guy is just so squared away and organized. But I'm still going to play around and not really follow that guidance right now. Yeah. And so I spent 2 years there. I went to Auburn. I told a story yesterday with Mike Carrata on the podcast that if I could have received a negative GPA at Auburn University, they would have given me one. I was really good at partying, really terrible at school. And so I had a lot of fun my freshman year, and I spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money. And I realized after a full year of going to Auburn, which I love, I needed a change. Yeah. And I remembered Staff Sergeant, now Gunnery Sergeant Sutton, when I left there, and I remembered how he carried himself. And I said, that seems like a good direction. And so I went off to Parris Island, and I remember.
What year was this?
It was 1999. And I remember telling my parents.
Were you prior enlisted?
I was. Yeah, I was a machine gunner. So I was an 0331 machine gunner. So I went to Parris Island. I remember telling my mom and dad, my parents are not military. They really don't understand the whole military track record or any of it. And I said, I'm going to Parris Island on Monday. She goes, oh, that's wonderful, honey. Who are you going to visit? It sounds like a beautiful place. I was like, I don't think it's going to be very pretty. Maybe so, but
I love your mom.
I'm going to boot camp in the Marine Corps. And my dad was like, why in the world would you do that? It's like, well, I want a better life and I want to better myself. And right now I'm not going in a good direction. And my dad even offered to buy me a truck and a four-wheeler and was like saying,
to not go
in the Marine Corps. He said, I do not want you getting killed in combat. Yeah. I said, Dad, I need this. And one day I'll be able to buy my own truck and my own four-wheeler, but I'll be living a better life, a more disciplined life, and I need this.
So did boot camp do for you what you needed it to do for you to give you that direction and purpose?
I went there, and I don't think I could run 3 miles with you chasing me with a rifle in less than like 30 minutes. And I left, and I was running 3 miles in like 17 minutes. And when I left, I was a pudgy fraternity kid with like the Justin Bieber haircut where I'd have to flip it. And then when I graduated, of course, I lost like 20 or 30 pounds. And I walked past my mom at graduation. She didn't recognize me. And so completely different human, and it's amazing what the Marine Corps can do in that time period in 12 weeks.
So you were in the fat body platoon, and then
I was not. I didn't have a white stripe. For those who are watching who don't know, if you are in the fat body platoon, you have to, or the part of that, you have to have a white stripe around your.
I'm sure they don't have that anymore. That
yeah,
would be,
but we had to have that, but I wasn't that chubby, but I still was not in great shape. And then when I graduated, I graduated in great shape. I had a new direction. I really enjoyed it. I carried a lot of the leadership from Marion Military because I was a student lieutenant when I left out of there. And we did do a lot of leadership classes, and they had a phenomenal ROTC program at Marion. And so I did learn some of those things, and I wanted key attributes. I remembered having some of my teachers that were really great leaders. You could tell just good humans.
Yeah.
And they were saying stuff because they wanted you to be better. And so I wanted that. And I wanted to really emulate all those people that had those characters because I knew I was wayward. But I didn't want to be. I didn't want to intentionally go out of my way to make mistakes. And so starting that career in the Marine Corps, having that ability to be a leader at a small unit level with 2 or 3 people, I had a responsibility now. These people relied on me, and it was really awesome, and I wanted it.
So just so I'm staying on top, so you're saying you came back from boot camp, and you've become basically this person that you wanted to be. Is that how you felt about it at that time?
That's 100% how I felt. Like I did not think that in a 12-week period you could be redefined and really do a 180 with the direction. I did a 180, and obviously I've still made thousands and tens of thousands of mistakes since then, but I had a new direction. And I had goals. And before then, I just kind of woke up every day in college or lack thereof attending.
Before you were One Direction.
Oh,
you were One Direction here. And
well, I just got up and I didn't plan anything. And I just kind of lived to live. And now I had goals. And it was
Was God in your life at this time, or are you just kind of on the fence? Or
I was a 1 hour a week Christian. And that was as long as it didn't inconvenience my social life.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was probably that way for about 30-something years.
So, Lee, what's interesting is you described this change that you made. I was thinking how I'd describe the audience, you to the audience. And I've said this to a couple podcasts where your name come up, and I'm going to get, Marines don't cry, but I think I've always seen you as one of the best people that I know. And you're one of the people I would fight somebody if they had something negative to say about you. So when you get out of the car today, I knew it was you because you still wear the medium shirt, so you got that going for you.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think
it's
back
shrank
to
in the dryer.
I think back to the first time I met you. If you remember, I think it was just before we went to Iraq in, I think, 2007, Monica had the jiu-jitsu gym, and you walked in, you said...
Club jiu-jitsu.
You said, hey, I think I was a lieutenant colonel by, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Lieutenant
you were.
colonel by then, and you said, hey, I'll see you in Iraq, and we can train together. And for the next year... I was there for 9 months before I went to Ramadi, but you and I trained in the gym. It seemed like 7 days a week in the jiu-jitsu gym there in Fallujah, and that's where you and I really got close, and I saw how Marines responded to you and you responded to other Marines. And just talk a little bit about that time and what that did for you right there.
And they still respond to you that way.
Yeah.
And your
Just
nonprofit and seeing veterans around you.
Training
That's
in the
amazing.
gym there, like what that meant to you during that year.
I can tell you that jiu-jitsu, along with my faith, jiu-jitsu is definitely a close second or third. My wife is right there after my faith, and then jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general kept me alive. And, going through chaos at Camp Fallujah, and I had 13 months there. I remember being with you for the majority of it. I mean, you're going out on missions and you don't know if you're going to die. And you're doing that on a daily basis when we would go out. And if we went out every other day, you don't know. And that's actually where I got a Purple Heart and got blown up. You don't know if you're going to make it back into the wire. And so to come back and have that decompression time through jiu-jitsu and through discipline and through eating healthy and being goal-oriented. And while we were out there, your wife started putting together my first professional mixed martial arts fight. And so I got to train.
Wait. Don't just skip over that.
Well, I don't want to skip, but I will say that I had a goal. And
Yeah.
being over there, we were staying in shape. We were keeping each other accountable. Because if you just go to the gym by yourself, you're going to get an okay workout.
Yeah.
But if you go to the gym and you have a team and you have a village and a tribe, you're going to get so much more out of it. And more importantly, you're going to learn from each other to grow and get better. And that's really what
jiu-jitsu
life is about, is
itself-
growing together and getting better.
Just so the audience understands, there are days when we had to break into the gym. It was a mats inside a tent, and it started with just me and Stuckey, and there were times there were 30, 40 Marines and sailors.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there
George
that were
Lockhart was
training.
in there, too.
Yeah, professional mixed martial artists. So it was the real deal.
It was,
a
I mean,
great
it
time.
literally kept me going and kept me focused because I had a lot of leadership conflicts, dealing with both peers, superiors, my Marines, and I could come in there and talk to you, and you were a lieutenant colonel who'd been in a long time, and I'd been an officer like a week. And so I'm able to talk through like, hey, sir, what is this? This is what I'm dealing with. And I could confide in you and get leadership lessons and not feel like my boss was judging me on a lack of leadership. So the ability
But
to...
the jiu-jitsu itself is just such a mind strategic. You're working through something in your mind. It is a mind fight. So just being able to do jiu-jitsu itself
It's
is
chess. You're playing chess.
therapeutic. Yeah, you're playing chess. It's physical. It's emotional, mental.
Try to text
Yeah.
grappling. You're going to get choked out. I'll tell you two things. Like, I cycle. I like riding bikes. I cycle. Try to text cycling. You're going to crash.
Yeah.
Try to text, and that's our problem, in my opinion, today's society. There's a lot of them, but not disconnecting from screen time and not disconnecting from this thing that controls our life, and just focus on spending time with what we had there. And that's a core group in a village. We were meant to be in a village environment, not this do-it-yourself, let's figure it out in YouTube to get through life. We
Well,
were
back up a second. How did you get there? How did you go? You went in the Marine Corps. You went to, on vacation at your Paris Island. Yeah.
I went back to college, and
Okay.
I knew at that point that I wanted to become an officer and finish school.
Okay.
Believe it or not, if you go to Paris Island for 12 weeks, you study a little better when you get done. So my study habits were better. I was more organized.
Yeah.
And so I had a goal then. I wanted to come back. I actually met Keith there. Keith was in the Marine Corps with us. He was in a different platoon. I was in weapons platoon, and he was in 3rd platoon. But able to meet some people.
Wait, where was that? Where did y'all meet?
It was in 3rd Battalion, 23rd Marine. So it was actually
2003.
all three of us were in the same unit. Different times, but we were in the same unit.
I was there a decade earlier, so
Yeah, he paved the way for us. But we were actually in the same time, and he joined in '97, and so I met him up in about '99, and then my brother followed me the year later. My older brother joined a year after because he saw the transformation. My older brother was 2 years older, and he saw the transformation in me, and he is pretty much my twin, but he's 2 years older, and so he went and.
So you
redirected
two
his
went to
life.
OIF 1 as a part of that reserve unit, right?
We did.
So talk about the training. I suppose you went to 29 Palms for 6 months. Talk about, do you feel like you were prepared to go to war? And more importantly, were your leaders in 323, were they ready to be leaders during that war?
I do. The main thing is like the military operation, urban terrain, the mount. We did so much of it. And while I was going through it, honestly, I was irritated because we were doing so much of it. But then when you go there and you're there 7 months.
You're talking about at 29 Palms.
At 29 Palms and wherever we were doing workups, when you get over there and that's all you're doing for 6 or 7 months, you appreciate the fact that you trained a ton prior to leaving. The leadership, you know, it was hit or miss. We had some really good officers in there. One of them is now a 1-star. So General Gerard is now a 1-star. So he's still in the Marine Corps. He's done exceptional. And just like anybody, you know, everybody has their good and bad days. But I definitely saw, out of the officers we had, I saw the characteristics that I wanted to attain and keep. And I saw the ones I never wanted to replicate. And so being with those people, I got to kind of create my little buffet of my leadership style. I want that. I want that. I don't ever want to do that. And then when they would make me feel bad or put me in precarious situations or be demeaning to me, I will never make my Marines or sailors feel the way that person's making me feel.
So Keith, how about you? What was your experience? You were active duty before that, right?
That's right.
So what was your experience going active duty to the reserve unit? What was kind of your view there?
Well, there's a big difference. Active duty is a lot more,
Yep.
Strict, So when I went to the reserve center, everybody looked at me like I knew everything. I'm like, no, man, we're in this together, It was more laid back in the reserve center. I appreciated that aspect. I was able to loosen up a lot more with them. And I believe it was Colin Powell that said, they asked him, why do you send so many Alabama boys to war more than any other state? He said, because them Alabama boys can do anything. And that's one thing with our reserve unit. We had electricians, plumbers, everything. So when we went over to Iraq, they literally could do anything. I mean, we turned a compound that had no electricity or anything, and they rewired the whole thing.
Contrast the leaders, NCOs, staff NCOs on the reserve side versus what you had on the active duty side.
The contrast between the two?
Yeah.
Well,
was it similar by the time you got to where they spun up by the time they got to Iraq?
I really believe so. As far as the leadership, and like Lee said, we had some good officers at 323, and I was surprised at that. So, as far as being ready, I think we were pretty much ready. We spent a lot of time over 29 Palms doing mount training over and over and over. We were just like, I remember the day. Our colonel, every day he would say, hey, do you have any questions for me before he left, and everybody, the one question everybody asked, when are we going to war, sir? And then he like, I don't know yet. And that one day he said, we're leaving tomorrow. And we just, we wanted to go. We were ready to go.
So where'd y'all go in Iraq during the battle? Where were you?
Numania, Al-Qut. We ended up at around Blair Field area.
Mm-hmm.
We were running prisoners back and forth. Al-Sawara. So really, Al-Numania and Al-Qut and Al-Sawara were some of the main areas.
So y'all doing combat operations like
we were doing mount,
take
we were
the
doing
hill
patrolling,
kind of thing.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of patrolling, a lot of mount, and really we spent our sleep time was QRF, so quick reaction force was our time off.
Right.
So kind of take us into that. Was it like in the movies where it's like this, your life and death situation and 38 hours of boredom in a life and death situation, just bullets everywhere? What was it? I mean, everybody's experience is different. What was it like for you guys when you were there in 323?
I shifted around, so I ended up being, I guess you could call it a redneck translator for a little bit of it. I learned a little Arabic enough to where I could go out and move with different platoons for a little while. So I'd actually attached to his platoon for a couple times, and then I would go on raids with them. And I saw different things. I saw a lot of the raiding, a lot of the mount when you're going into a house, it's kind of, you don't know what's behind door number one. So I think just the adrenaline, you're keyed up so much because you're always going into an unknown area. And you just have to figure it out and figure out what's behind door number one and door number two.
So there's mount with bad guys.
Absolutely.
There's mount with bad guys there, or is it mount and there's just this?
A lot of raids that we knew,
civilians
were bombs and whatever they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then situations to where we wouldn't know on a patrol. Like we took sniper fire one night, and so we had to surround this one house and figure out where it was coming from. And so just those things. The whole 7 months was not extremely kinetic, not like I've seen in the other two, but it was definitely enough to keep you busy and definitely enough to keep you on your toes.
Well, what would be then the, I don't want to say the memory that causes you the most kind of PTSD instead of a physical? You got the Purple Heart for a physical. It's all emotional and physical, but I mean, is it that you're being hypervigilant constantly and not knowing what is going on?
For me, it was because I'm already, as y'all both know, I'm already super hyper.
Yeah.
So then you key me up and I'm always up here. And then to come back and try to adjust back to civilian life or a slower pace, even though I was still in the Marine Corps, especially when I was an officer, I would come back for my one deployment was January of 07 to February 08. And then I deployed again in January of 09, around there. I think it was December, January, somewhere around there. Yeah. And so, you'd come back and you'd land back in reality, but it really wasn't my reality. And if you look at it from a Netflix series, you're watching season 8 for 2008, and you're like, okay, Leroy's got a little time off. Season 9, Leroy might not make it. He's in Mosul, Iraq, or wherever we were at the time. So I think it was just a constant roller coaster of not knowing and relationships back home. I was always dating people. I was never married. I didn't get married until I married my wife in 2023. So I was always single, and relationships just didn't work out for me. And I'd take probably 95% of the blame. But when you're overseas, you have your Marines with problems, and then you have your own stuff pulling you back.
Yeah, I will say I've met your girlfriends and they gave you 100% of the blame. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It's like when I met them, it is very difficult. It's very difficult to be a military spouse, a military girlfriend, whatever. I mean, so.
And to have that many Marines, and they had their own stuff. And so really the way I looked at it as a leader, who am I to have my own relationship problems when I have 45 as a platoon commander or 300 as a company commander? I need to be attentive to their issues. Right. And if I have my own stuff pulling me back, I'm not focused on their well-being. So it was tough, but it worked out just the way God wanted it to work out. And I met my wife in 2023, who's phenomenal.
Well, Lee, through an awful lot of therapy, I could say the way I would put it for myself, and see if this is the same with you and your girlfriends back then, is just emotionally unavailable, because the Marine Corps takes so much of every single thing that you have emotionally, mentally. One of your Marines has some kind of issue. It's like one of your kids has an issue, and now you multiply that by 20, 100, 200, and it's tough to live on both sides of that fence, which is not fair to our wives.
No, I agree.
Your girlfriend.
And them wondering what's going on. And, it's not like the world stops when we deploy. They've still got to live their own life, too. So, it's tough.
When did you get to Mosul?
I want to say it was December, or it might have been January 09. It might have been December 08. I'd have to go back and look at my DD-214, but might have been January 09, but it was right at the end of the year in 08 or beginning in 09. And then we immediately started. The first thing I did was send out an all hands who does jujitsu here, and I found out that everyone trained jujitsu there.
Well, that's why I bring up Mosul, because he glossed over it before. But I get this call in the middle of the night because the time difference. You're in Iraq and I'm in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and you said literally when I picked up the phone and it was Lee Stuckey. And Lee Stuckey asked you to do something, you're like, this is going to be the craziest shit ever. But
it'll work out.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, it'll work out fine. He said, how about you do a mixed martial arts event in Mosul, Iraq for the troops here? And I was like, you are effing crazy. Mm-hmm. And okay, well, let's go.
And Mosul was in full combat mode at that time.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was rough.
So we're going to do a show in a combat arena.
Yeah. Nobody would visit us, or like very few celebrities would come there. And so everyone stopped in Baghdad, and that was their last destination. And we didn't get any of that morale boosting. And that's really when I talked to Gary Valesky, who was our colonel, and Sergeant Major Pippin. I was like, guys, we got to do something. Like, this place is chaos, and we need to give them some downtime if we can. Yeah. And they were fully supportive.
They were. And it took a little while to get everything situated.
Why were you in Mosul?
I was a liaison, so I started as a liaison for the Marine Corps to work with the Marines that were in theater and working beside them in South Sinjar and some other areas out in Iraq on the border. And that transitioned to me working with a psychological warfare team. So the PSYOP team, Randy Smith, awesome guy. His dad passed away while we were deployed, and so he went back home. And I'd just been trained in information operations, which is psychological warfare for the Army. And so I was walking around trying to find another job outside of my liaison position, and I was able to pick up that job and work with that psychological warfare team. And it was funny because when I walked in the office, they were like, "Hoorah, sir!" And I was the only Marine on the base. And I was like, "Why are you hoorahing me?" And a couple of them were Marines, but they couldn't get back in because they had sleeve tattoos. So it was neat to work with that team, and just I'm still friends with a lot of those guys to this day.
Oh yeah, they still
it was
all the
awesome.
fighters that I took over there. Still, I mean, they're on my Facebook, and they'll email me every now and then, and so yeah.
General
it was
Odeniro was
amazing.
the one that hooked
Oh
that up.
gosh, yeah.
He was the one that hooked it up. And so the
gosh.
lady, I forgot her name, and I wouldn't use it if I remembered it, but she was a colonel. And when I called her in Baghdad, she goes, "There's no way we're doing it, but if you bring it to Baghdad, I'll let you host it here." And I said, "Well, that's not the point. The purpose is to have it from morale booster for 3-1 Cav here in Mosul because they need this morale booster." She goes, "Well, we're not doing it, and I'm not going to fund it." And I remember General Odeniro came to visit us, and Colonel Valesky was talking to him, and I was just standing there kind of
Now retired General Valesky.
yeah, 3-star.
Yeah.
So I was kind of lurking around, waiting on my opportunity. and he goes, "Hey, Gary, you need anything from me?" And I was like, and he looked at me like, "Well, actually, this Marine lieutenant is trying to get this MMA fight brought over here for a morale booster." He goes, "Call that person's aide right now. Call them. Make it happen. Make the phone call." And so the general immediately hooked it up.
crazy.
It was awesome.
Like, yeah, I know this lady,
yeah.
this
Yeah,
lady in
as
Florida
crazy
that
as
can make
me.
it happen.
Yeah. So he
But,
pulled
well,
the trigger.
I bring all that up because it was a morale booster.
Awesome.
I mean, when we were
like
there,
6,000 people, wasn't it?
6,000 people showed up, and they came in from every surrounding base, and it was amazing. It
Well,
was
the
an
cool
amazing
thing
show.
was I got to train with them. And so a lot of them, like when I would train with Serena and all these other
Oh,
people,
yeah.
she was a female.
Yeah,
So I knew
they loved that fight.
all the
female
ones that
fight.
were in different units, we could put the units versus the units.
Yeah.
And then I knew their skill set because I grappled and trained all their combatives. So I taught them combatives and worked with them. And so I kind of knew the pairing system and could help you build the fight card because I'd grappled with everyone. I was like, this will be exciting. This will be exciting. Patrick Miller was over there with us, able to put Patrick on there. And how crazy was it that as soon as Patrick fought, he went out on a mission?
Yeah.
He
That
literally
same
put his
night.
battle rattle on and went out on a mission.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I bring that up too, just because you're one of your AHERO Foundation. You have events and retreats out at your farm and stuff, and fishing events, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But you brought some MMA people to grapple with some guys. MMA is just a great way to work out some PTSD, work out some things that may be bothering you. And I just love that. That's why I'm like, and my listeners, if you've been listening a while, they know I've was a judge for the Georgia State Boxing Commission. I put fights together, things like that. But so that's why I wanted to say MMA. If you're looking for something, that may be it.
Well, I went to spend time with Carlos Machado, who's a good
Yeah.
friend of mine. I love Carlos and the Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson and Mr.
Yeah.
Ray Thompson. That's my MMA
was the
family.
event I went to.
For our
Yeah.
listeners that don't know, Machado is one of the greatest Brazilian jiu-jitsu artists of all time, and just his whole family is just,
Amazing.
they're amazing.
Yeah, they're 5 brothers. They all do jiu-jitsu. He's a coral belt. And I went out to do a podcast with him in September timeframe.
Oh, very cool.
And when I went out there, I talked to their group, and I went out there for some other stuff too. When I talked to them, I said, "Listen, I've been with a group, and I went to bars on Friday night, and I went to bars on Saturday night, and I lived that life.
Yeah.
And then I decided now, and through my fighting career, instead of Friday night being at the bar, I was in the dojo and in the gym, and in Fallujah, I was training with you. You're going to have 2 very different outcomes if you choose one or the other.
Right.
And so be cautious because I've never lost contact with any of my mixed martial arts friends, any of my jiu-jitsu friends. I still train with Carlos. I still am friends with Mr. Thompson. That is a true, genuine family that would do anything in the world for me. Y'all as well. The people that I was in the bar with, they're probably still in the bar. So be careful. The one thing I know I can control besides my foundation of faith is who I'm in the valley with and who I'm spending time with on a day-to-day basis. And I want to get 1% better in everything.
It's amazing how you get to know people when you're rolling around on the mat on top
Choking
of each other.
Choking them.
You can make them tell you things.
Yeah, so I know we're going to talk in the next hour, one of your many businesses, and you talk about leadership, but I want to go back to in the Marine Corps And you talked earlier about when we were training together in 2007, like some of the leadership challenges of those above you that maybe weren't doing such a great job. Kind of talk us through that. Maybe give an example of poor leadership and how you dealt with poor leaders.
Honestly, like in that deployment, I really had some really good ones. I had Colonel Vincent Stewart, who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up being a 3-star
Yep.
for the intelligence community. And it was funny because he would hear me. I have a little bit of an accent for those watching. He would hear me in the hallway and he would say, "Stuckey, get in here." And he was just so down to earth.
He call you Alabama.
No, he called me Stuckey and sometimes Leroy, but he was just so down to earth. And then I had Captain Anna Reeves, who ended up retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And she was a female. We had an individual augment company. And so we had people from 1-2 and 2-2.
And she would kick your ass in a second.
She's tough. Yeah, she's tough. She would train with us, and we'd sit there and do Muay Thai, and she was a tough lady. And
Yeah, I remember her.
when they were talking about women in the infantry, like 10 years later, I laughed. I was like, she had an infantry company.
Yeah.
We had 10% motor transport, which had females to it. And I would run a machine gun range every month. And the Marines were like, "Why are we doing this? We're in combat." I was like, "Because I want the best people in the turret. I don't care if you're a motor transport or you're an 0331 machine gunner." And a lot of my females beat the machine gunners every month, and they were in my turret. But Anna Reeves really showed me that she had absolute humility and took a leadership position running what was an infantry company as a female back in 2007. And she did a great job, and she was very good with not trying to be overly like rah, rah, rah,
Yeah.
because she did know that she was talking to a bunch of infantry Marines that already had kind of a separation because she was a female commander. But she did a phenomenal job, like really
Very unassuming.
very unassuming. And she's absolutely brilliant,
Yeah.
smart, and she loved us to death. She loved all of her leadership. She would listen to my crazy ideas and put up with me. So I really, now some of the units on the side, I had one major, and I can't remember what his name was, which I wouldn't want to mention anyway. But he was in the radio operations and had that kind of stuff. And I asked him for radio operators, and I asked him for some people, and he said, "Well, I don't want my people going outside the wire," because my people were getting smoked. Like we were going out like every couple days. They were really getting tired, and I only had a few radio operators.
You were running convoys from Fallujah to Baghdad. That was kind of your thing,
and
right?
Taqadum,
Taqadum,
so Al
yeah.
Taqadum, and we would do Al Assad sometimes. And
So, like, how many vehicles in the convoy? So the audience kind of got.
Yeah, so we had 13 gun trucks on a regular, so 13 trucks with machine guns, and we had a complement of 50 calibers and 240 Golfs. We had some Mark 19s in there at one point, but I realized it was just too much collateral damage from the Mark 19 for the 40 millimeter grenade. So we went down to 50 cals in the front, one in the middle, and then 240 Golfs, which were, there's just less collateral damage.
So you're spread out over what, a mile?
About a mile.
About
And
a
then
mile.
we had anywhere from sometimes 10 to 50 third country nationals. They called them TCNs, third country nationals, that we were safely escorting through a combat zone. And so we would transport them so that way the logistics got moved from base to base. And so my radio operators were getting used a lot. And I went over to this other company to ask, and he was like, "You can't take my people. They're not ready to go outside the wire." I was like, "Sir, they're in war. Like
They're here.
we're in Camp Fallujah. We're in Iraq." And he wouldn't let me take any of his Marines outside the wire, which I just thought was crazy. Now I ended up talking to the big boss, and we talked to the colonel, and I talked to my captain, and she went to bat for me. We worked it out, and I didn't get in trouble. I wasn't being disrespectful because I was a lieutenant and he was a major. But I went to Anna, and then Captain Reeves went over to the colonel, and we worked it out, and we got some people. But just to have that response from a person who's a major in the Marine Corps who brought their company into harm's way, and to tell a lieutenant, my Marines are not prepared to be in combat. I was like,
That's on you. That's your job to make them ready.
When I got to work with them, they were great. And we did some residual training with them. We took them out to machine gun ranges once they got attached to me, and we worked with them. So just these are mine, and not letting me cross-train and work with these people to get our mission done. I just don't get that. Like, give people the opportunity to grow and don't stifle their opportunity.
Yeah.
So
We're going to get into your mental health journey, but I'm just curious. And again, the audience knows I've been to therapy,
yeah.
and I call it crazy class. Were you slipping mentally at this point, like psychologically?
I was so just running so fast and sprinting. I sprinted. And really, there's no telling how many years I took off the back part of my life because that's how I lived my life. I was always in a rush to get to the next day. Well, as you get older, I'll be 46 on April 1st. As I get older,
Baby.
now I'm trying to slow down because I want to get that time back and I don't want to rush through my day. Y'all all know, like, the time goes by really fast. Well, at that point, I was just sprinting. And so I was mission driven, and then I got to get to jiu-jitsu, and then I got to get here, I got to get here, I got to plan for this. I never slowed down and took time to put on what I do now, spiritual armor, to where I'm not on my heels, I'm on my toes all day.
Well, where were you and when did you hit? Because I want to get to this because that's going to lead us into everything you do now. But where were you then when you hit rock bottom?
So I was coming back from the 2009 deployment, and I got pegged for recruiting duty.
Yeah.
And so they called me, and I remember getting an email, and I thought
Montgomery, or where was it?
It was. I thought I was supposed to have like another 2 months in theater, and I was going to be there for the MMA fight.
Yeah.
So I was pretty disheartened. I wasn't there to execute the event with you because I planned on actually fighting, as long as the commanders were like, maybe didn't know or let me. And when I got an email that said, you're coming home, you got, tagged for 6th recruiting district in Montgomery, which was great because I wanted to go back home. I just want to stay over there for a couple more months and finish everything and finish the missions and finish my deployment. And so at that point, I had been sprinting for like 3 years. And I didn't tell anybody. I'd already been blown up. I got blown up in 2007. I'd already received a Purple Heart. I already had a brain injury. I wasn't sleeping already, but I wasn't telling anyone. And so I wouldn't sleep. I would really just pass out. And then I would catch back up and stay awake for a couple days. That was from 2007 until 2009. So then I go home, and fortunately I had a fight right when I got home, and it was on Fort Bragg. So I fly home. My girlfriend broke up with me while I was overseas. I show up to the airport with nobody to pick me up. I had no family there. I had, I think, a Marine corporal that just happened to be working at the air station said, sir, do you need a ride home? And so he takes me home. I pass her driveway to go to my house because I lived in the same neighborhood. There's a Harley parked in the driveway. I don't have a Harley. And so, I mean, it's a lot, and the fortunate thing was I had a mixed martial arts fight within a couple weeks, and I didn't drink. And I honestly sat over there, and I wasn't sleeping already. I was focused on the fight, but I'll be honest, I sat over there and cried. And I could look out my window and see that motorcycle in the driveway.
I remember this entire time.
And I cried.
Yeah.
I cried. I sat there, and I drove to work one day, and she had a little girl. Her girl was probably 5 or 6 back then.
Yeah.
And she didn't know what was going on. And I drove past the driveway, and I think I told you about this. I drove past the driveway, and she was running out to see me and try to hug me. And her mom was behind her, telling her to not, telling me not to stop. And I never got to see that girl again. And I was with her for, 2 or 3 years. And that was pretty tough on me. I think she was about 2 when I got involved with that relationship. And
I remember this young lady and the girl.
Yeah, it was tough. So, that was not, the saving grace to that whole thing was I was not drinking. Because I'm pretty confident if I had been drinking, I would have probably taken my life.
But Lee, I don't remember back then, and as people can't even think back that far, we never talked about TBI or mental illness or PTSD. I do not remember it being a thing till, I don't know, the 20-teens maybe.
Suck it up, Buttercup?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah, suck it up, Buttercup.
so did you even realize at that time, like, hey, there's something wrong with me?
Yeah, I just knew I wasn't sleeping, and it was crazy. And I would really be up so long, I'd be up a couple days, I'd start, like, hallucinating. And then I would finally pass out. So, I mean, it wasn't safe. And then I had that relationship issue going on. And so I got home, I fought. Fortunately, I won. I won that fight at Fort Bragg. I moved home to recruiting duty, and that was around August, and it just all hit me. Now I didn't have a fight to train for. I started drinking. I started thinking about that relationship that was failed. And again, this is not her fault.
Yeah.
A lot of it was me. A lot of it was on me. So I take blame for a lot of the stuff in that relationship. And I just started drinking and drinking my sorrows away. And on a Thursday night in August, on this new job when I was home, I was at my farm, and I picked up my pistol, and I drank enough to get brave, even though that sounds crazy. I hate saying that, but I was brave enough to pick up the pistol and to put it in my mouth. And I went to pull the trigger, And as I'm about to squeeze on a Glock with no safety, my mom calls, and my phone was sitting right in front of me on the counter in my kitchen at the cabin. And it said, Mom, and I just broke down crying. I dropped the pistol. I dropped it down. I answered the phone. I'm going to cry thinking about it. I answered the phone, and she knows something's wrong with me. She knows something's going on with me. And so she came out there, and she's like, whoa, what's happening to you? I was like, I don't know.
I know your mom. And
yeah, she was terrified.
Yeah.
So it was pretty rough. And I remember her coming out there, and for the first time in my life, I had to be vulnerable to my mom, you know? And I had to say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm weak. You know, I'm a sissy. I'm struggling. And why am I struggling? Why aren't my Marines struggling? Why am I struggling so bad right now? And why am I wanting to die? Like, I don't feel, I have to change whatever's wrong with me. I started talking to her, and we spent a couple months together, and I finally thought about it. If you go through this stuff, and if you go through trauma of any sort that's that severe specifically, and you don't have any issues, you're probably a sociopath.
Yeah,
And the fact that I went through that and was wounded and went through a lot of issues and went through relationship issues and I wasn't doing okay meant that I was normal and dealing with abnormal things in my life. And so if I'm dealing with it as what I consider an alpha male and a professional mixed martial arts fighter and an officer in the Marine Corps, I know my Marines and sailors are dealing with it. And so I immediately just really started being transparent and not trying to have this fake facade of I'm this tough Marine officer. And I really shifted. I still loved my Marines during that whole period, but I really, really changed it to telling everybody how much I love them and opening up and being transparent about all the things I was going through.
Lee, during this time, did anybody ever look at you and go, are you okay? Is something wrong? And I'll tell you why I'm saying this is because I remember during that time you came to our jiu-jitsu gym in Florida, and I remember saying to Monica, something's wrong with Lee.
Oh, yeah.
I remember saying that. And you know, once I found out later that, you know, about putting the pistol to your mouth, I'm like, God, why didn't I say something?
Yeah.
Did anybody ever?
No.
Ever?
And I was always one of the first people at work, one of the last people to leave. I was always in really good shape.
But people
And-
can tell.
Yeah.
I could tell.
You,
and I don't
you
see
knew me a
every
lot better
day.
than most people, though. And most people, you know, I had this facade, and I'm really bad about covering up when I'm going through stuff with laughter and being funny. And so that's my mask.
Yeah.
I'll put on my ha-ha mask and tell jokes and stuff. So you're looking over here, and I can distract you. And I actually helped write a song with Casey Fall, who's one of our new singer-songwriters with AHERO Records.
Yeah.
And a part of that song is about the suicide attempt.
She was just in Pensacola.
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
she?
about she's there now. It's about
Yeah.
the suicide attempt, and in there, I'm fine, and that's in the song because people would ask me eventually, and I was always I'm fine. And at one point, I was so drunk I couldn't stand up, and I was so drunk on my farm I couldn't walk. And my 90-something-year-old father walked up to me as I'm up against a sawtooth oak, so drunk I can't walk, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine." Now, I couldn't walk, and I'm in my 40s, and I'm up against an oak tree in the middle of my beautiful farm.
Yeah.
I didn't know existed because I was so drunk and I was lost in my own life, but I still said, I'm fine.
And I know your dad, too, and I know he knew you weren't fine.
Oh, he knew. Yeah, he knew.
So,
And so he took care of me and got me back. And
but that is actually, I want you to hold right there a second because that leads to everything you're doing now, everything with AHERO Foundation, everything you do for the veterans. So we're going to, this is a great transition to part 2. Let me put it that way. So listeners, stay tuned for part 2. It's going to come next week. I'm going to continue this conversation with all these Marines here at the table and hear everything Lee is doing now. So thank you for listening to the Monica Sanford Show, and stay tuned for the next episode.